You can tell that story real quick.
Oh, I can?
Yeah.
All right.
Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new, I'm Jen.
Oh, and I'm Anthony.
You just told me in your last video. You don't have to point to me. I know to say my name.
Oh.
I do have to point to him. And today we are going to tell you guys about Bailey's birth story. It is her 6th birthday today, which is insane, but I thought it would be kind of cool and special to tell you guys about what our experience was like. She is our firstborn and it was kind of a whirlwind. So I also asked some questions. We'll have answers to those as well towards the end, so stay tuned for that. If you have any other questions that come up from this, be sure to comment them down below and we will answer them as well. So my pregnancy with Bailey was pretty easy compared to how I've heard some pregnancies go. I had a little morning sickness in the first trimester, but nothing crazy. I think I only actually got sick a couple times. I think I was happier pregnant than when I'm not pregnant, right?
Right.
Yeah, like
less grumpy, weird.
Kind of opposite of how a lot of women get, and I just loved being pregnant. I loved it so much. Even the harder parts, I was just so excited that it didn't matter. So I was super happy. We were due on August 7th with her, and 38 weeks and 1 day is when we went into our last doctor's appointment, which we didn't know would be our last doctor's appointment, but it was. And I was 1 centimeter dilated at that point, but she still said that everything looked still kind of tight in there and that it would probably be a little while. And then the next day,
I was working on the dock and I went in early. I went early that day, or I guess that morning. And it was about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning when you sent me a text message to give you a call, and then you told me that your water had broke.
Yeah.
You had like a quarter-sized dot.
So
when you woke up.
He was working 2 jobs at the time, and he was working like an early morning shift and then going to his full-time job afterwards. And yeah, it was like 1:30 in the morning. It woke me up out of a dead sleep, and it was just a little pop of water, and it literally was the size, like you said, the size of a quarter. And I knew that it was a small percentage of women have their water break before having contractions, so I didn't know what it was. And I just put a puppy pad down underneath me and went back to bed because it was 1:30 in the morning and I like my sleep. So I texted him to let him know, but then I just went back to bed. Then I woke up somewhere between 8 and 9 and just went along with my day, but I had a panty liner in and I kept soaking it. Every 30 minutes or so I'd have to change it. It would just like dribble out a little at a time, and I was kind of like, okay, this is probably a little more than nothing. So I let him know that I'm gonna call the doctor and see maybe if we should go get checked, and she said she wanted us to. So he came home, we went to the hospital and got checked, and in the triage room when they were checking me well, that's not what I was about to say, what he's thinking right now. My water broke completely and they had me on the monitors. You can tell that story real quick.
Oh, I can?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, be PC about it though, like be nice.
So after So after her water broke, they obviously were checking everything, and so they did the 2 or 3 finger check, and the rest of the water broke. Then at that point they said, you know, hey, we're not going anywhere, we're gonna stay here, and so they connected her to the monitors to, you know, check the heartbeat and pulse of Bailey, and so the nurse left the triage. And with the monitors on her belly, we all know, for you people that are pregnant or have kids, that when a woman is pregnant, can't really hold pee. That's kind of hard to do, and also their farts are a little hard to hold in too. So with the speakers or the microphones on her, with the microphones on her belly, or the monitors, whatever they're called.
It sounded like a microphone.
Yeah, so she couldn't hold one in. And she let it out and it echoed through the speakers and we could not stop laughing. The nurse came in and she's just like, is everything alright in here? And we could not stop laughing. We're like, yeah, everything's fine. And yeah, that was...
Yeah. Not my finest moment, but a good memory for sure.
One that I'll definitely never forget.
But yeah, at that point, it was about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I hadn't had any contractions yet. At this point, if we're considering that first little pop that woke me up to be the water breaking for the first time, it had been about almost 12 hours since that had happened. And we were admitted into the hospital and we basically just started walking. We walked every inch of the hospital. My whole hope was to have a natural birth. Our birth plan we had gone over, we called it our birth preferences because we know that birth can't be planned like I like it to be as a planner, but we had gone over our birth preferences with my OB and she was on board. She knew we wanted a natural birth, no interventions, no Pitocin, no medications, nothing. We wanted basically a home birth, but in a hospital setting for that added security and for her to be able to deliver our baby. So we just walked stairs in every inch that we could and bounced on the yoga ball and tried just to do all the general stuff that you do
Jumping
to try
jacks.
to get it. I don't think I did jumping jacks.
No, you didn't.
To get labor going, and it was just so slow. Contractions, like it started eventually later that evening, but was not anything hard to go through. I mean, just breathing got me through it pretty easily. My sister and Anthony were my birth coaches and she had to work that day, so she got there about 7 p.m. and Big Brother was on at 8 p.m. We all watched it, so we decided to just sit in the hospital room and I was bouncing on a yoga ball watching Big Brother, trying to get things moving. And the nurses would come in and check on me, and they had been in contact with my doctor. They were shocked that she was letting me go as long as I did without any interventions because of my water breaking, which kind of annoyed me a little bit because it's not their choice, it's my choice. Like, she's not letting me do it, I'm choosing to do it, but she was on board with me, so that's all that mattered, like that we were on the same team. But anyways, throughout the night, he ended up going to sleep. I told him he needs to get some rest after watching Big Brother because at that point I could handle it on my own. So he slept for a little bit, and a little after midnight, I woke you up. Do you remember that?
Is that the time I fell right back asleep?
No. At a little after midnight was when I finally was to a point where I needed some help getting through the contractions, and I definitely couldn't breathe through them on my own anymore. So I woke him up, I said, all right, it's time for the coaching to really begin, and that was a little after midnight. So at that point it had almost been 24 hours of my water being broken, but it had only been maybe like 4 hours of contractions at the most, like of good solid contractions at the most. So then after that kind of picked up, what is your memory?
I just remember shaking your legs like crazy during your contractions, and then massaging the mess out of your back, or I wouldn't even call it massaging, it's borderline abuse. Yeah, just putting major pressure on your lower back, and just, I remember your sister being on one leg and I'm being on the other, and as soon as the contraction would hit, we just start vigorously shaking shaking your legs. I mean, gosh. I think we were almost giving Bailey, you know, shaking baby syndrome while she was still in the womb. It was tiring for Jennifer's sister and I to be just doing that at a constant pressure, but obviously our tiredness wasn't really I guess an option at that point, just because we weren't even the ones in the pain, I guess, or in labor. Yeah, we just had to suck it up.
Yeah, no, and it sounds really weird, and a lot of people think of getting through contractions and they think of breathing and, you know, like water. And the water, I got in the water a little bit, but it didn't help. It did not help my pain at all. I got out pretty quickly. But for me, I literally needed them to beat the crap out of my legs and my lower back, and that is the only thing that got me through the pain. And I think it was because that pain took away the pain of the labor, of the contractions.
Right.
Maybe
Oh, we
a
had
little
that
bit.
4-prong massager too.
Yeah, we had a little massager that he would use on my lower back, and then they would punch my thighs and grab them and shake them, and that seriously, it did work. It worked 100%. I don't know what I would have done without, I don't even know how we discovered that. Like, I don't know if I just told you, like, start punching my legs, or like, I don't even remember how that came about, but that's what did it for me. I don't really remember like at what point the contractions changed over to transition contractions. It just kind of was all a blur to me, but I would say, what would you think? Like more than a couple hours probably of transition contractions?
I would say so. Yeah, they
About
were pretty intense for a good minute.
Bailey ended up being born at 12:44 in the afternoon. So for the last few hours, that was the transition contractions where that beating on me was really the most helpful. But what really scared me is I got to a point where my body was ready to push. And it had to have been somewhere between 11 and noon. It was closer to 11 probably, right, when my body was telling me it was time to push, and there is no stopping that urge. It is completely involuntary. It's unexplainable to somebody who hasn't gone through it, but my body was telling me it's time to push. So I started pushing, and it gave me instant relief. Like the pain almost completely went away once I started pushing. And they checked me, and I was only 6 centimeters dilated, and the nurse told me that I was starting to swell because I wasn't dilated enough and I was pushing. I don't know if she was telling the truth, because at that point my doctor wasn't there, so I don't know if maybe she just didn't want to have to deliver the baby herself, or if that was the truth. But I instantly kind of felt defeated a little bit, because I knew there was no way I was going to be able to stop pushing on my own, and I was probably going to have to get an epidural just to stop pushing. The pain, we had found ways for me to manage it and deal with it, but the pushing, I couldn't help it. So I said, I'm gonna need to get an epidural then, because I don't want to risk having a C-section for sure. I'm just gonna have to have something to stop the urge to push then, because I can't stop this urge. So they got the anesthesiologist in there, and she got the, I guess, needle, the tube, whatever they put in your back, in place. And this whole time he was dealing with some man pain of his own because of the way he was sitting. Let's just say that, but I didn't know that at the time. But the whole time, I'm having transition contractions and the urge to push this whole time as I'm sitting on the bed. And she got that in, and as soon as she got that in, I felt Bailey's head drop into, like, literally, like she was about to fall out. It was the weirdest thing ever. I knew right away, I'm like, no, she's coming now. Like, she's coming now. And so my doctor was there at that point, and she laid me down and checked me. She's like, yep, she's coming, you know, like, this game on. And so everybody switched gears to delivery, and I just started bawling. I lost it because I was so close to giving birth naturally. And I literally, in my mind, I thought I had just gotten the epidural right before I was about to push her out, which completely devastated me. And then my doctor told me, no, she hadn't even put the medication in yet. You didn't get the epidural, she just had it prepped. And so I lost
the tube in and everything. She had the needle in the spine and
so
everything.
I lost it even more, this time out of like relief, like, oh my god, I did it. I didn't get an epidural. I did it. I made it. And at that point, everything was just pure like joy for me. I pushed her out in less than 20 minutes.
Right.
Anthony got to deliver her. How was that?
Oh, that was amazing. Just being able to see her come out and actually bring her out, be the first one to have hands on her, and even cut the cord right away. That was,
well, not right away.
Well,
we did delayed cord clamping, right, so not right away, but
yeah. But that feeling was pretty amazing. I think it immediately creates a bond, and just seeing that happen it's once in a lifetime. Or I guess twice in a lifetime for me.
However many kids you have
Right?
in a lifetime. Yeah, so it was part of our birth preferences to have him deliver her, and thankfully that all worked out. And he was able to do that. And I did get to reach down and touch her head as she was coming out, and it just gives me chills to think about it. And I pushed her out. Pushing for me, I don't remember feeling pain at all. Like they say that ring of fire happens when the head's coming out. I don't remember feeling that. I don't remember feeling any kind of pain at all with pushing. She came out within 20 minutes. We laid her up on me and let the cord continue pulsing for a few minutes until it was done, and he cut it. And
I gave her an Audi because I didn't do so well.
well, I think that's true.
I do, because
we should look that up actually.
Yeah.
Do you guys know, if you know, that the way you cut the cord can cause an innie or an outie? Let me know, because
too far out.
He's convinced that he cut it in the wrong place and gave her an outie, but they clamp it for you and tell you where to cut.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's true,
I'm
but
pretty
let me know
sure.
if you know in the comments. But, and what did I say after I pushed her out?
She goes, I could do that again. I want, what'd you say? I want
3 more.
I want 3 more immediately.
Immediately after pushing Bailey out.
I mean, they're not even done giving the baby, they haven't even given Bailey to her yet. And she's like, I want 3 more. I mean, I kid you not. The doctor looked at me, looked at her assistant that she had there, and just like, that's the first time I've heard that before.
I love it. I seriously, like, I could give birth every day if, I mean, it didn't cost so much and take so much energy to raise kids, but it was just the coolest experience for me. It's giving me chills just to talk about it again and like kind of relive it a little bit. I wish they would have let us videotape in there. We couldn't videotape, but we do have pictures of the process and stuff. We're just gonna answer a few questions real quick that were asked. First question, I have it on my phone here. Was your birth experience any different than what you had anticipated? If yes, then how? I think we prepared with a lot mentally and physically. So I mean, going through the birth classes, but also like I read so many books and listened to podcasts on natural birth, and I had just mentally prepared. So we kind of knew going in that it could go any way whatsoever. I don't know if we necessarily anticipated it going a certain way, because we knew that we wouldn't be able to predict that, but it went pretty close to how we ideally wanted it to. The only thing that I might have changed is maybe there was one nurse that was not on board with the natural thing, and she was kind of like pushy about it. And I mean, we just pushed right back. So for us, no one's gonna walk all over us. So it didn't cause any changes for us, but maybe having that negative energy might have been something I would have changed. Or maybe like not having my water break so early, so we didn't even have to deal with the, oh my gosh, it's almost been 24 hours thing. But other than that, I mean, I feel like it went pretty ideally.
Yeah, so I would agree with that.
The next question is, what was your motivation behind having a natural birth? And if you have more than one kid, did you have another natural birth? So up until I got pregnant, I was in the give me the epidural when I walk through the door camp. I don't like pain. I'm a big wuss when it comes to pain, like huge wuss.
Agreed.
But as soon as I knew a little baby was growing inside me, I wanted to do everything I could to protect her. And for me, my personal decision, I do not judge anybody who gets epidurals. Do what you have to do. Your baby's gonna come into this world. Do what you need to do to get through it. But for me personally, I didn't want any interventions. I didn't want any drugs, any medications, no matter how much or how little of it actually gets to the baby. I just wasn't comfortable with that for my personal choice. So for me, that was the whole motivation behind it. Absolutely 100% biggest advice is to prepare, mostly emotionally. You want to go through the birth classes, you want to find different ways to cope, different techniques, and you're probably going to find things that work for you and some things that don't, just like I did. They didn't teach us punching and shaking in birth class. It just happened and it worked, so try it out. But mentally prepare. Read stories, natural birth stories. Read books from midwives and people who have been in the trenches, who have done this their whole life, and who have seen positive, happy outcomes of natural birth, because that is the number one. Their natural birth is not the norm anymore, and it's easy to be judged for making that decision. People judge for everything, I mean, let's be honest, but it's easy to be judged for making that decision, and for people to think, oh, you think you're better than everybody and you're not getting an epidural because of it. It's not about that at all. It's a personal preference. And so kind of just gearing up your mind for that feedback that you'll likely get, especially if you are doing a hospital birth, but also for yourself, so that you get your mind in the right place to handle it, because it is literally, I would say 80% mental, getting through labor naturally. The next best advice I would give, especially if you are doing a hospital birth or birth center birth, but especially hospital, is to have your doctor on board with you.
100%.
Have your OB
Agreed.
on board with you. And if your OB is not on board with you, or if you're feeling pushback from your wishes for a natural birth, find a different OB. 100%. Because if she wasn't on our team and on board with what our plan was, then those nurses would have been a lot harder to handle, because she's the one that handled all of them and all of their questions and doubts. She answered those questions with them, and I didn't have to. We didn't have to, because she did, and she already knew what the plan was and was on board with it. So absolutely, those two things are the most important. What is one thing you didn't bring in your hospital bag that you wish you did, and what's one thing you brought and never used?
I don't think we left anything out of our bag. We had it set for like a month.
Yeah, we had a lot of stuff. What's something we brought and never used?
I couldn't tell you.
We brought like diapers and wipes and stuff. If you're going to give birth in the hospital, don't bring that. They have that at the hospital for you. You don't need any of it. So all of those like baby necessities, they will provide for you. The last question is, did your doctor set a time that they wanted baby out, since your water broke so early before contractions? We already kind of talked about this. We already had a plan with her. We had no time limit. It was as long as baby was doing fine, as long as I was doing fine, she was comfortable letting us continue. So we didn't ever have to deal with that. And that's another reason why I truly, truly believe you need to find an OB if you're giving birth in a hospital that is on board with that. That is it for today's video. If you made it to this video, comment down below, I love babies, and that will let us know that you watched till the end of the video, so we can thank you directly. Be sure to click subscribe if you haven't already, and please share our video with your social media, your friends and family, because we would love to be introduced to all of the people in your life as well. Be sure to check out tomorrow's video, which is the birthday party vlog of her 6th birthday, which was a Christmas in July theme. But for now,
stay humble and be kind, right?
And
see you next time.
bye, guys.